This is Jets at Noon with Cameron Poitras and Jim Toth on 680 CJOB.
Both teams are trying to get back to healthy, in the sense ready to play another game, and because it's heavy and it's fast, and there's a lot of energy being spent. So I'm okay. It is what it is. It's both teams are going through it. I get it gives a lot of our top players an extra day to kind of get set again.
That was head coach of the Winnipeg Jets, Scott Arniel, yesterday. Cam Poitras. No, Jim Toth. Jim Toth's not here. Tyson Rewicki sliding on in. Jim hopefully will be back tomorrow.
Big shoes to fill, but
not that big. They're not that big. Let's be honest.
Size 11.
Let's sit here. Anybody could take Jim's spot.
Hey, I'm gonna, as from one flow to another, I'm gonna put my boots in the mud a little bit and stand up for.
You're gonna stand up for Jim Toth? Somebody has to.
Someone's got to do it around here.
He's the most downtrodden man in Winnipeg media.
For now.
Somebody's got to stick up for Jim Toth. I of course I love Jim.
We all do.
Jets at Noon is brought to you by, it's good to have you here though. Jets at Noon is brought to you by Wash Method Car Wash, 690 St. Anne's Road. A VIP take on the text line to win a VIP car wash from our good friends at Wash Method, 204-780-6868. We'll announce the winner later on in the program, which is coming at you live from the Boston Pizza studio. Celebrate the whiteout at Boston Pizza, your go-to place for the playoffs. So the Jets are off to St. Louis today. But before that, they held a full practice this morning at Canada Life Center, started at 11 o'clock. All eyes were on Gabriel Vilardi. Is he going to shed his yellow non-contact jersey and put on a regular one and be a full participant in practice? No. The answer is no. He remains in a non-contact jersey for now. Doesn't mean it won't change. But that means, and Kelly Moore put this out on X, and I agree with Kelly, and then I agreed with Kelly at the time, and then Scott Arniel confirmed it later on. Kelly said, I don't believe there has ever been a previous occasion where a player has gone directly from the yellow jersey to the next game's lineup with respect to Vilardi's availability for tomorrow night. And then the coach comes out and says, Vilardi won't be a game option until he sheds his non-contact jersey. So the Winnipeg Jets being up 2-0 in this series, I think gives him a little bit more time. We always like to play this game. Would he be, if the Jets had lost the first two, would Gabriel Vilardi be in the lineup tonight? We'll never know because the Jets are up 2-0. But that's what happens when you win your first two games at home. It affords you the option to make sure that everything is spick and span, and Gabriel Vilardi has every second that he needs to make a full recovery.
And don't get me wrong, too. Like, adding Gabe Vilardi to the lineup would obviously be a huge boost to this team, but they played such a good team game in game two that I don't even mind giving him a little bit more rest and kind of getting back to 100% before he's in the lineup, because, man, like the way that the Jets were able to suppress shots and limit chances against the Blues in game two, they can build off that going into game three and game four. I mean, hey, if you can get an extra week off ending the series early and just let guys like Gabe Vilardi and Nick Ehlers get back to full strength, I think that could be an absolute huge plus for the team.
Also, Dylan DeMello was not at Jets practice. Josh Morrissey was paired up with Colin Miller. Here was the lineup. It was the same as from game two, except for that little wrinkle with Miller in for DeMello. Connor Scheifele, Iafallo, Niederreiter, Nemestikov, Perfetti, Tanev, Lowry, Appleton, Gustafsson, Barron, Jared Anderson, Dolan. On defense, Morrissey with Miller, Sandberg with Pionk, Stanley with Shen. Arniel also going on to say that Dylan DeMello missed today's skate for maintenance. So I don't know. We of course, we don't know what's going to happen, but I don't think we should expect Dylan DeMello to not play tomorrow. I think if he was questionable, I think we perhaps would have saw Shen move up into that spot to play with Morrissey, because I don't think you're splitting up Pionk and Sandberg at this moment. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, it was just, like they played, like I mentioned, they played such a good team game in limiting chances that I'm sure some of those guys, especially DeMello, they probably did get a little bit banged up in those games, and it's just kind of take the day off and kind of heal up from those bumps and bruises a little bit, and then come back ready. Because we've seen, I don't think Scott Arniel is the kind of guy to kind of play those those lineup games. Some coaches are will do that where it's always game time decision. Like 8 guys are game time decisions, and we'll find out, and they all play. Doesn't seem like Arniel's kind of like that guy too much. He's kind of just gives it to you straight, right?
Yeah. Well, I totally agree with you on that. I think that, I don't think he would come out and say that Vilardi is, not an option, right? If he was playing those games. Also, there's going to be, you are probably wondering about the latest on Nikolai Ehlers. Gabriel Vilardi will be on the trip. Nikolai Ehlers will not. So I don't think we can expect Nikolai Ehlers over at least the next 2 games, as he's still listed as week to week. So we await the arrival, at least just to have Nikolai Ehlers back skating, which I don't think he is, or if he has been, it hasn't been confirmed, and I don't think he's been skating yet.
I know you guys kind of talked about it a couple days ago, but just like with Ehlers and Vilardi coming back and how well Perfetti's been playing, does that kind of give you any qualms about going right back to what you had going in the regular season with the Lions? Are you open to kind of moving some things around and trying some new things now at this point where you're already into the playoffs?
Well,
series?
No, I think you put Ehlers back in the lineup. I think you put him right next to Nemestikov and Perfetti. I think these are good problems to have. I think, Jared Anderson-Dolan has done a yeoman's work
absolutely
in that role. But I think Iafallo drops down to that spot, adds more offense to that fourth line, makes that fourth line even better. And Tanev has been such a spark plug. He's been Brandon Tanev. Yeah. He's been Brandon Tanev. He's come as delivered, and you drop him down to the fourth line, and you move Niederreiter back into that third lineup. The team just becomes deeper, right? And I even with Ehlers and Vilardi out, the depth of this team has risen to the challenge defensively, and they've also chipped in some big opportunity, in some big moments too as well. So the Winnipeg Jets will be off to St. Louis today as we go towards Game 3. Pre-game gets going at 6:30. Puck drop after 8:30. Everybody be ready for that one. It's going to be coming after 8:30. Also, quick note too as well. Robert Thomas was not skating, but he had a placeholder, much like DeMello. So I think they'll be. I think he's going to be good to go playing for the St. Louis Blues. I know that he got a little roughed up at the end of the regular season, but he's going to be good to go. I want to float something by you, Tyson, and let me preface this upcoming comment with the fact that I don't think this is an issue at all for this team. Okay, I think they've proven time and time again over this season that they have been able to do this. But I still think, for myself and many out there too as well, I think there might still be a question mark continuing on through these playoffs. How will the Winnipeg Jets respond after a loss, right? That leads me to ask you, Tyson, and I'll go a long way around to ask you this question. But is it a good thing, or at least is there silver lining to the Winnipeg Jets only splitting this upcoming 2-game set against St. Louis, whether they lose Game 3 or Game 4? And don't confuse me. I don't think it's a good thing if they lose both. Like if they come back and the series is tied 2-2, that's not good news for this team. And I think it's important though that the Winnipeg Jets go through that little bit of adversity at some point. Eventually they're going to lose. I'd rather them lose in a situation where they're up 2-1 or 3-1 and lose that first game. They'd be like in the past, right? Where, let's go back to some previous series, right? So 2021, they sweep the Oilers, they follow it up, they lose one game against the Habs, they lose the next 3, they're swept by the Habs. 2023, win Game 1 against Vegas, they follow that up with 4. Win Game 1 against the Avalanche, they follow it up with 4 as well. They haven't been able to get back into gear. Right. And I also want to preface this with the fact that it is incredibly hard to win in the playoffs. So if the sweep is there, you're going to take it. You're going to take all 4. There's no doubt about that. Like, it is difficult to win in the playoffs. If you have a sweep in your hands, you're not going to, guys, lax off. Hey, we don't want to win 4 in a row here.
Back here a little bit.
That's stupid. Right. But this team has been able to prove that they can come back when they're down. This team has been able to prove that they can win tight games. And they prove that they can lock things down when necessary. They've already proven that to themselves over these first 2 games, right? In the regular season, they've proven several times that they can respond after a tough defeat. Haven't been able to do that in the playoffs. I still think it's a question mark. Kyle Connor said about winning a Game 2 wasn't something they were focused on, but they were aware of it. I think this is the same thing.
Yeah.
I don't think it's something they're focused on. I think they know they can do it, but they're aware of it.
And, I think this Jets team learned a lot from their 2 wins so far already this series. And looking back at game 1, you could tell that there was a little bit of nerves there with the team. Connor Hellebuyck looked a little bit jittery in net. Just the guys in general looked a little bit jittery and kind of nervous for that first playoff game in the first 2 periods. And then in the third period, we kind of saw the team that we saw in the regular season take over.
Yeah.
You look at game 2, and St. Louis came out with a huge flurry. It's kind of like a boxing match, right? When one guy's super aggressive, you could kind of go on your back foot a little bit and try and manage that pressure, or you can put your boots in the mud and you can swing back.
Yeah.
And the Jets swung back there, and St. Louis gave them all they could handle, physicality-wise. And the Jets just kind of negated that, and then they gave it back to them even more throughout the game. And I don't know if we necessarily see that in past iterations from this team over the past 2 seasons. I think this is showing that this team does have the ability to really stick to their structure and what they know best. And that's what Scott Arniel's done over this whole season, is really implement that we can go to our game and our game works well. And when we're playing our game well, there's not many teams in the NHL that can compete with us. And especially St. Louis in this series. It's not a shot to St. Louis at all, but the Jets are just a much better team, and they're a much better structured team.
Yeah,
and I think
go ahead.
No, when they're just firing on that level, it's tough to beat. And I think the Jets now really have that confidence in themselves and in their team and in each other to stick to that and to play well, just even if adversity comes up.
The series is more about the Jets than it is about the Blues. Let's take a break. Let's come back on the other side. I want to hear what you think. Is there a silver lining to a split, or you want to just wrap this up, winning it in 4? I want to hear your thoughts on that. 204-780-6868. Call the Boston Pizza Jets at Noon hotline, open 24/7, 204-780-6800. Celebrate at Boston Pizza, Canada's go-to place for the playoffs. You call that Jets at Noon hotline, open 24/7, 204-780, listen, 6800. The number 1 caller will be awarded a $50 gift card to Boston Pizza on Friday with your best take. We've had some dynamite takes so far. I've already have a tough decision, and we still have a couple days here before Friday to pick the winner here. So make sure you get that call. And Dwayne Gylywoychuk, 680 CJOB commentator, is going to help us break down how the Jets have been so effective in the third period. And what does he feel as a coach, as a former player? How do you feel about being in a situation where these games are split up with 2 days in between? Do you want to just get into the rhythm? We'll ask him that when we come back.
Jets at Noon with Cameron Poitras and Jim Toth on 680 CJOB.
Leafs and Sens. Ty Domi weaving through the Senators' defense in the extra frame.
Max Domi.
I thought it was Ty Domi. Wasn't he out there strapped on his skates? That wasn't him?
That would be something to see.
I thought it was Ty. I thought his son was the one watching him in the stands. Oh, that was Max.
They should do that. I want to see Ty Domi back for 1 game.
Yeah. I swore it was Ty. He's got those sweet mitts. Max Domi gets the winner in overtime. Up 2-0 now, the Leafs. Goal scorers goal. How do the Senators battle back in this series? Have they been the worst team overall? I don't think so.
I think New Jersey holds that title right now. And it's not really their fault. I mean,
the worst team in this series, I mean.
Yeah. Oh, it's weird because Ottawa's they've outshot. They won the shot battles against Toronto, but Toronto's been really getting some quality looks, and it's surprising to say, but I think the Leafs have the goaltending advantage in this series too. Linus Ullmark has not played well so far for Ottawa at all.
No, he hasn't.
Are they going to put Swayman in, the Senators?
God, no. Trade for him?
Mid-series trade?
Mid-series trade. Bring Swayman in. No, I think... See, the Senators, this is just the evolution of this team. Are they going to get to the next level? Remains to be seen. Are they going to have to get into the playoffs? Yes. Are they going to have to lose in the playoffs? Yeah, sometimes you have to lose before you can win, but I think they can win a couple games in Ottawa. I'm certain of that, but I don't think they can win the series. I just think Toronto is just better than them in almost every aspect.
Yeah, totally. And the big guns are actually producing now too, and that's been the
power
problem.
play. Power play's been hot. Dwayne Gylywoychuk with us after this.
This is where I go back to our depth, and this is where I go back to trusting in our 4 lines, trusting in our D. You're going to get caught out against, their elite players at times. You know what to do. You've done it before. It may not be the matchup that we had in games 1 and 2, but it's your responsibility to make sure that you do your job.
Jets at Noon is brought to you by Wash Method Car Wash, 690 St. Anne's Road. VIP take on the text line to win a VIP car wash from my good friends at Wash Method, 204-780-6868. We'll announce the winner later in the program, which is coming at you live from the Boston Pizza Studio. Celebrate the whiteout at Boston Pizza, your go-to place for the playoffs. Cam Poitras, no Jim Toth, Tyson Wicki in the saddle. Tyson, how you feeling?
Feeling good. Saddle's quite warm, oddly warm.
Yeah, I don't know how Jim has kept that seat so warm.
It's a marvel. It's a modern marvel.
It's a modern marvel.
One of those the new wonders of the world.
So as soon as I booked Dwayne Gylywoychuk, who joins us now, 680 CJOB commentator, Jim just all of a sudden he's like, "Yeah, I can't make it." So Dwayne, what's with that?
Wow.
Is that a problem with the two of you, or?
Oh no, I know Jim way back when his hair used to be actually a good style when it was in the 80s, and he was a young reporter trying to find his way, carrying his little duotang around. So me and Jim go way back. So,
what color was that? Was that a teal duotang or was it bright yellow?
It was bright yellow with Jim Toth written in permanent marker.
just so he didn't lose it. Dwayne, thanks so much for joining us today. How do you feel about? I want to get your thoughts first on the schedule. You play 2 games in 3 days to kick things off, and then you go back to St. Louis. Now they're going to face 2-day breaks between Game 3, Game 4, and Game 5. That's necessary. As a coach, as a former player, how do you feel about being in that sort of situation? I mean, do you just want to every second day get into a groove here, or is this something that you would be like, okay, that's great, we can be ready, we can get more time, we can get healthier, through the grueling playoff, 60 minutes of playoff hockey?
Well, I think it's a little bit of the personality of the coach. I think some coaches want to get it going right away. I think in the Winnipeg Jets case, you might look at riding the momentum that they've got from, the whiteout, being at home, the 2-0 series lead, how the emotion of the first 2 games were with key players stepping up and, kind of showing that they're ready to, lead by example, take the role that everybody's been waiting for them to take. But I think in the big picture, I think head coach Scott Arniel will take the extra day and how physical and how heavy this series has been. I think that some key players like Josh Morrissey, Mark Scheifele, even Kyle Connor, you go down the list. I think some of those key individuals will like to use that extra day to kind of just heal, take a break, kind of decompress. Because if Winnipeg does get through this first round, the next round's going to be back to back. There's only going to be a day in between games, and it's going to be a little bit different. So I think looking forward, if a coach ever looks forward in the playoffs, they're going to take these extra days when they can.
And with these extra days, too, it's going to give a little bit more time for Nick Ehlers and Gabe Vilardi to slowly make their way into the lineup. But with the way that the Jets have kind of been building off of these 2 games here, is there anything to, not wanting to rush Ehlers and Vilardi into the lineup right now, especially with the 2-0 series lead, and kind of just keep playing your game? And we saw in Game 2 how well they shut the Blues down. So is there anything to keeping the kind of group that's in there right now that's been in the series so far, as opposed to rushing Ehlers and Vilardi back into the lineup?
Yeah, head coach Scott Arniel hasn't had to make any changes or, press the panic button yet or think about his lineup with, what he has available. And I think you're right. Like this, they're not going to rush either of those players, Ehlers or Vilardi. When those guys come back, they want them in until they're done playing hockey. So right now, with the way the team's playing, the way their depth at forward is playing, it is a 60. Scott Arniel isn't thinking about his lineup just yet. When the door and the knock on his door comes and both those players are cleared to play, then that's when the decision starts coming. But I'm sure Scott Arniel is hoping, let's get rid of this first series. Let's move through it. Let's get the first one underneath their belt, and then let's insert some energy, some new players. It's just like all of a sudden at the trading deadline, you can insert some players that haven't been through the physical demanding of the St. Louis first round series if the Winnipeg Jets end up winning, and now all of a sudden you're adding some energy into the lineup. And these two players are key players. You're going to see some excited players having those guys back in the lineup.
And it's such a good thing too, Dwayne. I mean, to know that you have these depth guys who can step in. That maybe David Gustafsson, maybe Jared Anderson-Dolan. Maybe those will be the 2 guys that step out when Ehlers and Vilardi come back. But you can slot these guys right back into the lineup here in case something else happens. I mean, that is such a huge plus.
Yeah, the confidence those guys are getting, I think in training camp, some of those guys, we would have never, ever thought they would have been playing key roles. Even Brandon Tanev at the trading deadline, I think everybody kind of was wondering where he was going to fit. The role that he's doing now and not missing a beat is going to be so good for their depth going on for as long as the Winnipeg Jets can play. But for Jared Anderson to only come in and just kind of, not miss a beat on that fourth line and be effective where that fourth line, like the fourth line was one of the best lines in that first game against St. Louis. They really kind of steadied the course for the whole team until everybody got their legs underneath them. He scores a big goal. Like no one would have ever expected him to do that for this hockey club. But now all of a sudden, the depth that we've heard so much about this hockey club all year long, again, is showing when it needs to be shown when key individuals are hurt. And now all of a sudden, the Winnipeg Jets are just playing their game. And we've heard so many times the coaching staff or the management say that it doesn't matter who it is. It's just going to be the next player up that's going to play, and nothing's going to change because they all know how they have to play.
And going back to game 2, I mean, we all saw how physical of a game that was. Particularly, I mean, the highlight of the game was obviously the Logan Stanley hit on Jordan Kyrou. But when you're in a game in a series like this where it's this physical, as a defenseman yourself, Dwayne, how hard is it to kind of toe the line between wanting to get momentum for your team and lay the big hit and separate the puck from the body and putting yourself in bad situations where you're giving up odd man rushes?
Well, I think that, you heard Adam Lowry mention it a little bit from his standpoint, being physical and that, that type of player is so key in his makeup as a hockey player. But a guy like Logan Stanley, Luke Shen, even Dylan Sandberg, Neil Pionk, you can go through the lineup. They can't be going around and chasing those big physical hits. They've got to pick and choose. They've got to generate those, and they generate those by, the backside pressure the forwards have coming back and enabling them to stand up and have good gap. If you look at that hit by Logan Stanley, if there's not the backside pressure by Adam Lowry, there's no way that he's able to do that, because the attention that Adam Lowry brings to that St. Louis player, he has his head down, he's looking, and he's feeling that pressure from the backside. It's what makes Logan Stanley's hit so effective. And now all of a sudden, that's just the confidence, and it gives Logan Stanley the confidence, but not only, but the whole group. When a player is physical like that in a series, especially game 2, St. Louis came out and wanted to make a difference. You've seen Braden Shen going around and making sure that everybody knew he was on the ice. If they can do it as a group collectively, which they've done in these first 2 games, it goes a long way. Now all of a sudden the belief starts going slowly out the door of the St. Louis Blues.
How have the Jets been able to shut the Blues down in the third period? And I'll add a little bit of a wrinkle to that too. If the Jets play like that, can the Blues do anything about it?
Well, I think you're going to see a little bit with St. Louis Blues going home. I think you're going to see a little bit of different makeup in their top 6. I think Jim Montgomery might, fiddle with his lineup a little bit to load up his top 2 lines and then look for a mismatch either against, the fourth line when Winnipeg's out there, or even, the Nemestikov line where he feels that maybe that line can be, exploited a little bit defensively. But I think the one thing about Winnipeg that they've done really well is they've been able to establish a forecheck, and so it's hard for St. Louis to break the puck out of their zone. The only way they've been able to do is rim pucks off faceoffs or the old Dustin Byfuglien airmail, and right away now that becomes a foot race, and a lot of times those pucks are 50-50, and the Winnipegs have been able to get to those pucks. But I think also just the old term you'll hear coaches say, like 5-man in each zone. They have 5 guys in the offensive zone, and then when the puck gets turned over, there's 5 Winnipeg Jets in the neutral zone, and then also in the defensive zone. They've just been swarming the St. Louis Blues and taking away time and space. And St. Louis is going to have to do that somehow to create that time and space for themselves. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see if St. Louis can find a way to do that. I think one way they're going to do is they're going to throw every puck they can at Connor Hellebuyck just to cause some chaos in front of them.
Obviously, the Blues are going to be super desperate coming into Game 3. I mean, if they lose, go down 3-0 in the series, and that's a pretty tough hill to climb from there. What message would you convey to the team going into Game 3 to kind of, ease the bit of tension that, hey, St. Louis is going to be coming in full force here? What do we need to do to kind of mitigate that complete desperation from the Blues?
Well, I think that they've got to get their building, they've got to get their crowd into it. In order to do that, you got to be physical, you got to score early. I think that they would be looking to try to get as much offense in the first 10 minutes of that hockey game. If they can get a lead, if they can get a 2-goal lead early in the game, where they really, try and force Winnipeg to get away from their game plan, get away from Winnipeg Jet hockey, which the Jets have done so well this year not to do. But I really think if they can get a lead and, a 2-goal lead, which is something they really haven't been able to do in this series, that's going to be it. But I also think just trying to generate ways to stop Winnipeg from attacking and having puck possession. I think that's going to be a big thing. If they can eliminate puck possession that Winnipeg has done such a great job to have, I think it's going to go a long way, because obviously then they would have the puck more.
If you're coming back to Winnipeg for Game 5 after splitting these 2 games, are you happy as a coach?
Yeah, I think anytime you can go into the building and get a split, and then coming home and knowing, you look at the big term, you have 2 games at home to end the series. But I think that Winnipeg is going to want to end this series as quick as you can. As a coach, you don't want to linger around. You don't want to have a team to get any kind of life. Whole series can change within a period, within a game. You don't want any momentum to go away. If you can end it on the road, you end it on the road. You have the mindset, you get rid of your opponent as quick as you can. But if you go down for the split, that's the old common term in the playoffs. If you can go on the road and get a split in your visitors' building and come home and then end it in front of your fans, that's what a lot of people like to do.
CJOB commentator Dwayne Gylywoychuk on the program. Dwayne, thanks so much. Appreciate your time. Take care.
Thanks, Dwayne.
Have a good day, guys.
Yeah, have a good one. 204-780-6868, 204-780-6868. So the silver lining on the split, right? Is it the worst thing ever? The Jets have to respond. They got to come back from a loss. I asked you your thoughts. Steven says, Cam, the only way the Jets lose in St. Louis is if they don't play their game. If St. Louis outplays Winnipeg again, it's on Winnipeg. No silver linings in this series. That one from Steven. Alan says, hi, guys. St. Louis may have the last change and might take a game, but they just don't have the horses. They ran 11-7 to keep their forwards out longer, but that didn't help. In the 2019 Stanley Cup Playoffs, the Blues overcame a Game 1 loss to the Sharks, won the series 4-1, and secured their first ever Stanley Cup, but have never rallied from being 2 games down.
Interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. And this texter says, Jets need to focus on Game 3, not the sweep. You improve on Game 2 from Game 1, so play lights out Thursday and make St. Louis feel helpless going into Game 4.
It must be kind of scary, too, if you're a Blues fan to kind of think, Game 2, Game 1, a little bit jittery from Hellebuck, but it wasn't the worst game from him. Game 2, he played well, but didn't really have to, stand out in that game just because it was so defensively sound. It's got to be, as a Blues fan, you got to be a little bit worried, just thinking man, are we going to get Hellebucked coming up soon?
Well, and you're also thinking we can't make a mistake.
Yeah.
Right. We have to be, our forecheck has to be so hard. And that's why I think, and this is just me floating this out there, over a big reason why the Winnipeg Jets have been so dominant in the third period and been able to shut them down are all the reasons that Dwayne just said. I also think that St. Louis is getting gassed, keeping that up. They are chasing them. They are relentless on their forecheck against the Winnipeg Jets. And by the time it gets to the third period, that pace is difficult to keep up. And the Jets then can take things over. And you're right, they can't make a mistake. St. Louis is in a situation where they cannot make a mistake.
And the Blues have been playing playoff hockey for what, a month now? Close to a month and a half. That's going to be taking a toll on them as well.
Let's take a break. Let's come back after this. 204-780-6868. We'll give away the VIP text from Wash Method. And let's go around the horn a little bit. Talk a little bit of Oilers, maybe a little bit of Minnesota Wild. Perhaps some Montreal Canadiens. Les Habitants.
Versus Washington. Ovi, the GOAT.
Here's a big question. Who are the Washington Capitals? Is it unfair for me even to be asking that question? Because they finished second in the league. But who are they?
I don't know. I think the Capitals have what it takes. I think they just kind of fell asleep in the third period. And when you do that against a fast team like Montreal, they'll make you pay. The
real test is if they can get by Montreal, which I think all indications say that they should, at the very least. Big test is against the Carolina Hurricanes.
There's no Yarrow Halak for Montreal this time to save them.
At noon with Cameron Poitras and Jim Toth on 680 CJOB.
Congratulations, Kevin. who has the Wash Method Car Wash, 690 St. Anne's Road, the VIP text. Kevin says, I miss the days when the NHL playoffs had 2 games in 2 nights, and the days were only travel days. That was a real war of attrition. It didn't take 3 months to get through the playoffs. Kevin says that. Ooh, would that work nowadays?
Well, at least it's not the NBA, where it's like 3 days off, game, 2 days off, game, another 3 days off. We got to make sure everyone's okay.
Yeah.
Can't have anyone spraining their ankle too much.
And then everything is just petered off by the time you get to the final. But thanks for that text message. I don't know if that would work in today's age. But listen, I'm all for making the play. If the playoffs if you could somehow magically do it all in 1 month, that would be awesome to me. But it's just not possible.
2 games in one night.
Yeah, back-to-back, babies.
Now we're talking.
Yeah, noon puck drop followed by a 7:30 puck drop. Miss your chance to get your thoughts on the show today. Call the Boston Pizza Jets at noon hotline, open 24/7, 204-780-6800. Celebrate at Boston Pizza, Canada's go-to place for the playoffs. If you call 204-780-6800, the number 1 caller will be awarded a $50 gift card to Boston Pizza on Friday. Let's go around the league here. We chatted about Washington and the Habs in the last segment there, so let's go pretty quickly here. We only got about just over a minute. How angry are the Oilers going into tonight? How angry are McDavid and Leon Draisaitl after blowing that 6-5 loss? After that, coming back from down 4 goals.
Who could have predicted goaltending potentially being a problem for the Oilers? I can't believe it.
Who saw that coming?
It took me by surprise.
Does LA need to win this game?
I think they do.
Yeah, I think they do too.
If they win this one, then at least it's like, well, at worst, we're tied.
Yeah.
With home ice advantage for the rest of this, like for games 5, 6, and 7.
The thing with the Oilers is you can't rattle them at this point. They've been through too much. You can't rattle them. So like you're up 2-0, and it's like, okay, that's a good lead. You know, they still have to win 4 or 5, but they can do it. Well, that's the thing.
And even if LA grabs a lead again, They know that they can blow it quickly, so that's
well, yeah, and they did that against one of the best, next to the Jets, the best defensive team in the league. Yeah, right. I mean, LA, especially at home, they're like studs. But we'll wait and see. The Wild put together a convincing win. Big victory, 5-2 over the Vegas Golden Knights, tied 1-1, heading back to St. Paul, Minnesota. Is this going to go to Game 7?
I don't think so. I think Vegas gets it done in 6.
Okay,
I do think that. I mean. Kaprizov played an absolutely great game. That top line was fantastic. I just think
Matt Boldy's scoring.
Yeah, he is. I just thought Vegas had a down game. They played so good in game 1, and they looked like a real force that I think they kind of get their game back on track. And it was a 10 p.m. Central Time start. Like, that's crazy.
Tyson, you're sticking around till 2:00?
Oh, absolutely.
You're in for Jim Toth. Jim Toth hopefully will be back tomorrow. No Gabriel Vilardi. He did not shed his non-contact jersey. He will not be an option for Game 3. And Dylan DeMello was not a part of practice, but just a maintenance day. He should be okay. Tyson Rowicki will take you all the way until 2:00. Thank you very much, Jeffrey Fortier, for producing the show. It's for me back same time tomorrow for Game Day. Tomorrow, see ya.